My name is Audrey Mitchell. I am the president of Innovation Club. Also would like to recognize our officer, Louisa, which is the recruiter, Kanisha, which is our event coordinator, as well as Brandon, which is our historian. We are so glad to have you here. A few rules that we have in place for everyone is please make sure you mute yourself as the speakers are presenting, and make sure you keep yourself muted all the way to the end when it's time for Q&A. As well, please take notes of your questions because the Q&A will be at the end. Also, our event is recorded and is live streamed on YouTube. So be mindful of that. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Grace Rodriguez. Grace Rodriguez is a social entrepreneur that helps do-gooders do greater. For more than 2 decades, she has shaped programs, spread ideas, and superior action as a founder, leader, advisor, and advocate for numerous initiatives and organizations, directly reaching over 267,000 people in the past decade alone. Welcome, Grace.
Thank you so much, Audrey. And while I start sharing my screen, I want to make sure, thank you, HCC, Ravi, and Audrey, for inviting me to speak with all of you in the Innovation and Entrepreneurial Student Club today. I'm really excited to share my story with you and hoping it will spark new ideas for your own ventures and help you start connecting with our community of change makers. So to kick it off, I just want to start, I'm originally from New York and I've moved back and forth between there and Houston. But since returning to Houston in 2000, it's become my forever home. And I'd been working in corporate marketing in the World Trade Center in Manhattan, and I got burned out. So I decided to move to the West Coast and stopped in the Houston area to spend some time with my parents and reconnected with some old friends who happened to be DJs. And one night after we were hanging out with the Scratch Pickles, who were some turntablists, we decided to start our own crew. And that led to the launch of the Cracker Nuts. And from learning how to file our LLC or our limited liability corporation papers with the Texas Secretary of State, filing a DBA, learning how to do accounting and bookkeeping, and managing DJs who are have scattered schedules, and then negotiating contracts with event promoters. All of these different types of things. That was really kind of like my dive into the deep end of learning how to start something completely from scratch by myself, because the guys were focused more on the actual DJing versus the business operations of it. So from the Cracker Nuts, I started I became a writer and editor for a startup magazine, and then I got recruited by Councilmember Gordon Kwan when he was in office to produce his TV show, and that led to me working at his office at City Council. And then we hit term limits. I decided to launch my own branding and marketing agency called Ein Brand, and then through that, I was helping nonprofits, small business owners, entrepreneurs, political candidates with their branding and marketing. And I realized that a lot of them had a challenge in how to access capital so that they could grow their own businesses. And that led to me wanting to learn more about the venture capital world. And a friend of mine was working for DFJ Mercury, and he said I should meet with those guys there, the managing directors. And he introduced me to Blair Guru, who was one of the founders of Mercury. And that led to me working with Mercury Fund to get, a peek behind the curtain of the venture capital world. And while I was doing that, I was also volunteering with my friends at Culture Pilot, and we launched TEDx Houston, and we were doing other fundraisers and festivals together. And I realized I really loved working with them. So I ended up becoming a principal at Culture Pilot, and Mercury became one of our clients. And we actually designed the logo that's on that slide you see right now. And as I was working with Culture Pilot, we met more people. We met some folks at South by Southwest who wanted to start a conference for graphic designers or people who are at the intersection of design and data. And we launched the Visualize conference. And then because we were TEDx organizers, we were able to go to the TED conference. And as we were at the going to the TED Active conference, I was talking with the content director who is her name's Kelly Stetzel. And I was telling her, we had TEDx organizers from around the world, TED educators, speakers, translators, all coming together at the TED Active Conference. And we could make the experience of the event even more exciting if we were able to include those people in co-creating the event and co-creating activities at the event. And she said, well, would you want to do that? And that's how I ended up working for TED as the creative director for the TED Active Conference. And then, my partner was also he is still a professional musician and has several music projects. He decided to start a children's music project called Andy Roo and the Andy Rooniverse. And so at the same time, I was helping him create the characters, co-wrote a book, co-wrote some of the songs with him. And then Ted decided to sunset the TED Active Conference. Wah, wah. And I was looking for, what do I do next? And Blair from Mercury Fund reached out and said, would you want to meet this woman, Emily, because she's interested in starting a space for early stage entrepreneurs and startups. And I said, sure. Sounded exciting. We met and we went on this journey of 1,000 coffees and met with a lot of different people in the ecosystem. And that led to the launch of Station Houston, which I'll get into more later. So as a co-founder of Station, had this thriving hub, realized the startup world is dominated by men. So I created an organization called Women in Tech Houston to start providing a space for women who are in tech to start meeting each other and convening and supporting each other. And then I also realized I missed doing these large scale events. And I recognized the power that doing really large events has in bringing people together and bridging gaps, helping people collaborate, helping people just understand what other people are doing, and then opening new opportunities. So while at Station and right after Hurricane Harvey, I decided to launch the Houston Innovation Summit. And we just had our 4th one this year in November. And through all of that, I started getting more intentional about the kind of impact I wanted to create. And that led to me joining Impact Hub Houston. But I'll go into more depth in that along the way. First, I want to tell you, let you know, how did I get here to Impact Hub Houston in a little bit more detail. First, it goes back all the way to when I was littler. I'm really short, but so when I was much more little, I've always loved to learn and to create, and those two passions connected to lead me to design. And some people think that design is just making something look good or making things that are really cool, but design can be a powerful tool to solve problems and to create transformative change. As a kid, whenever I encountered challenges, I found that getting to the root of a problem, whether it was, how do I make my old clothes seem new because I couldn't afford to get new clothes, or how could I make money to save for college? If I got to the roots of what those problems were, and then tried to hack solutions to those problems, like I could upcycle oversized shirts into dresses, or I could make bracelets and sell them. That was the easiest way for me to overcome those problems. So basically, by being crafty and creative, it helped me become more confident in my own resilience, and that meaning in my ability to adapt and thrive no matter what kind of problems came my way. And that faith in myself made me more open to new opportunities. It helped me develop a growth mindset. So when people asked me if I could do something, I realized that if I knew just enough to create a strategy and get started, and then I had enough time to develop the project so that I could learn what I needed to do along the way, then I could confidently say, yes, I could do it. Because I had faith in myself that I could learn by doing, right? And I knew also that if I made a mistake, I could fix it, or I could learn how to fix it, or I could find someone to help me fix it. And with that, with those kind of tools and confidence in my pocket, I started volunteering with a lot of different organizations, helping different nonprofits with community outreach, helping them with fundraising and festivals. And a lot of this, kind of can-do attitude led people to start trusting my abilities, and they started contracting me to produce fashion shows and events. And mind you, this is still in my last 2 years of high school and through college, where I started doing a lot of these events, just because I love to hustle and I love to be in the mix of things and doing a lot of things that are fun. And that kind of enthusiasm and those early experiences with community engagement and event production just continued to serve me well as I've been building upon them to get access to new and bigger and better opportunities along my journey. And so, as I told you before, just offering to help Kelly and help make the TED Active Conference better, that led to me actually getting a role with TED. So, and to those who haven't done this kind of work before in event production or conference production, it may seem like frivolous, like, okay, great, you throw a big party. But there's a great deal of organizational leadership, business development, strategic partnerships, operational efficiency, team cultivation, because you work with a lot of different people from, with a lot of areas of expertise. There's production management, technical expertise, marketing and communications, and conference planning skills that go into the successful execution of each one of these kinds of major events. So whenever I encountered an opportunity to improve my skills in any of those areas, I would offer to help, and then I would propose a mutually beneficial way for the people I wanted to help to achieve the outcomes they wanted, while I achieved the experience I wanted. So I could say, if you need help with marketing, and I wanted to have experience in a sphere like venture capital, it's I can help you with that. I can help you with community engagement in exchange for a role, whether it's a contract or a job or a collaborative project where I could get some funding, because I wanted to make sure that I was still able to pay my bills and feed myself. And proposing those types of mutually beneficial projects to people is what led to me becoming a co-founder of Station Houston, as you heard earlier. I saw that the people that I was talking with about launching Station, they had incredible depth of expertise in finance, in venture capital, in investing in startups, and advising, tech portfolios of companies. The area that I had a lot of strength in was in community engagement, community development, marketing and communications, and event and programs production. So I carved out that space for myself among the team, and that's how I became a co-founder and got equity in exchange for providing that kind of value to the team and to Station Houston. And as we went on, as the station grew, I found that I was able to bring more diverse perspectives and cultures and values to it too, because as I said, the startup ecosystem tends to be male dominated. So I wanted to make sure, and white male dominated. So I wanted to make sure that as I was doing events and programs and putting together workshops, that the people on the stage, the experts that we were showcasing, were just as representative of the diversity of Houston as the people in the audience. And as I was continuing to do that work, and from that experience of working with Station Houston, I learned that I really wanted to create an organization that was closer to my own values of putting economic inclusion, equity, and justice first. So in the tech and business ecosystem, they put profit first, and then in the social impacts ecosystem, they put purpose and people first. Not to say that they're mutually exclusive. You don't have to choose one over the other, but you prioritize how you measure your success. So if you're saying that, quarter to quarter, we need to have an increase of revenue growth, you're going to say it's okay if we aren't as inclusive as long as we have that revenue growth. And on the other side, you can say, well, no, we cannot, we will not take on these extra activities to grow our revenue unless they are also inclusive first. So as I was realizing that, I was talking to two people I had been advising, Natasha Azizi and Sharoya Spandiar, who had been looking at how to bring Impact Hub to Houston. And they reached out and asked if I would be interested in taking a more direct leadership role. And these two things combined at the perfect time for me to leave Station and join Impact Hub Houston and help launch it. And if you don't know a lot about Impact Hub Houston or the Impact Hub Global Network, Impact Hub Houston is a locally rooted, globally connected nonprofit that empowers people with purpose. And we help change makers like you get access to education, resources, and mentors, and a community that can help you launch and grow your ventures and scale your impact. We are one of about 100 impact hubs around the world in over 56 countries, and we all align, even though we're independently founded and independently operated, all of us work together and aligned in supporting entrepreneurial solutions and innovation towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And so, if you're working on anything basically that's good for people and the planet, then it's probably under a Sustainable Development Goal. So when you ask me, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? I will answer you that entrepreneurs are the change they wish to create for the world. And like looking at my journey, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people at first, but the thread that weaves all of my experiences together has been a passion for creative problem solving and for bringing people together to share ideas, create cool things, and have fun. And that is essentially what an entrepreneur is to me. You seek a problem, you solve it, you share those solutions with people, and you get compensated for it. Whether that's increasing your profits or revenue, or you just get paid for services. And what you create doesn't have to mean everything to everybody. Some people feel like they have to solve a big, hairy problem for the entire world. But, if let's say if you're in a community that is kind of remote, might not have ever been exposed to Asian American culture, Asian culture, and for some reason doesn't have access to bubble tea, and you're like, I want to bring this deliciousness to my community, and you decide to launch a bubble tea cafe. A lot of people might say, you know what, that's not for me. I like my plain sweet tea, and that's cool. But for those, the special few who have had their eyes open and are like, oh my gosh, boba is my life, then you might have exposed those people to a new culture. And even though it doesn't seem like a lot of impact, it's the first step towards greater impact potentially. Or you could look in a community, let's say a low-income neighborhood, where there are students who might not have access to technology, might not have tutors or mentors, and you say like, you know what, I want to help these students get tutored and mentored so they don't fall behind. And you can think about, should I create a for-profit business model or a nonprofit revenue model around it to make it sustainable, so that I can then generate more revenue, so I can hire more people and grow this service to serve more students, and then keep scaling your impact. Either way, whichever one you do, as long as you intentionally want to create some kind of impact, long-term impact with it, you can call yourself a social entrepreneur. So, how can you start creating change as an entrepreneur? First, find something worth investing your time and attention into. And I emphasize that really strongly because you can always make more money, you can't make more time, and you have a finite amount of attention. So, what do you want to spend a specific section of your life working on? If you don't know exactly what that is, you can think about, what problem are you passionate about solving? And if you haven't discovered what problem you're passionate about solving yet, look at what causes you find yourself volunteering for, or think about what kind of work you've done before that you really enjoy. Or, kind of do what I did. Look at what challenges or skills you're curious to learn more about, and then embed yourself in those industries or in an organization or company that's kind of working in that. And then see how maybe it's, you find that it's something you really don't want to do, and at least you've checked that off the list. You can also find inspiration opportunities by looking at what other people are doing. And these are some examples of different types of social ventures or impact ventures, and some real world examples of startups. And a lot of them are actually members of Impact Hub Houston. But for an earned income impact venture, for instance, they identify a market need to address and then develop services or products to directly benefit people. And so, for instance, Yop Records started the Just Add Beats program to teach students predominantly in Title I schools 21st century skills through podcasting, beat making, and sound engineering. And even though their beneficiaries are the students, they find that their customers are actually Harris County and the school districts, because that's who's going to pay for it. You could try micro-franchising. Winda Technologies provides solar panels and batteries and charging stations to people in Africa. And those people not only have energy for their homes, but they're able to charge a fee for people to actually charge their devices at those charging stations. You can think about cross-subsidization, which is where, for instance, Impact Hub Houston has a community membership fee at $35, but we have a pay it forward fee at $50, where that 15 extra dollars will help fund student scholars so that more students can become members of Impact Hub Houston for free. And so that cross-subsidization is where you charge one group a little higher so that you can charge less to another group. Market linkage is where you open up new markets to diverse entrepreneurs. Sangar Rum actually buys sugarcane from farmers in Liberia and then turns that into rum and sells that internationally. And they also teach the farmers in Liberia how to create more operational efficiency so they become better entrepreneurs, so they can grow their ecosystem. Microphilanthropy is about where you can crowdfund basically for good, and you're able to provide money directly to impact enterprises or provide pass-through donations. This past year, because of COVID, we actually started a fund to raise money to pay local makers to create personal protective equipment for people in minority communities, because those are the communities that are being most heavily impacted by the pandemic. And so that's an example of microphilanthropy. And then employment generation is one of those how can you create more impact? And Potential Workforce is an example where they are actually helping people who are on the autism spectrum get jobs within the regular workforce, and helping companies learn how to support people on the spectrum so that they're successful in the workforce. So those are a lot of examples of different types of social ventures. If you need help selecting an area to start with, you can find a worthy cause by going to globalgoals.org, and that's where you'll find all of these sustainable development goals and be able to dive a little bit deeper into what those are and see what resonates with you. And then if you need help figuring out what to do first and then what to do next, these are some tools. You can either take a screenshot and Google them, but I will provide the link to this deck afterwards, and all of these underlined things are links to these tools. Discipline Entrepreneurship Toolbox is at detoolbox.com. It's kind of like a workbook. It works you through the entrepreneurial process. Y Combinator is one of the world's leading startup accelerator programs, and they provide the startup school for free online. edX also has free courses online. Obviously, HCC has the Entrepreneurial Initiatives group. The Houston Area Urban League has the Small Business Development University, and that recurs a few times a year. And then the Lean Startup book, if you have time over the holidays especially, look at that. This link actually goes to the Lean Startup book at the Houston Public Library, so you can check it out online and then read it there. And then, of course, become a member of Impact Hub Houston. Got to make the pitch. If you need help figuring out who can help you, attend some of the Houston Startup and Entrepreneur events. We have a calendar on our website where we pull everybody's events in, so you can find out what resonates with you and then just show up and see who might be interested in mentoring you, tutoring you, working with you, hiring you. You can also look at the SBA and at SCORE's websites to find people who can mentor you. Houston Exponential has developed the HTX Tech List. If you Google that, that's where you can find startups that might be interested to work with. There's also a free, Houston Startups group on Facebook that you can join and start finding out who's in the space and see if anybody would be interested in mentoring you or providing you with an internship opportunity. And again, become a member of Impact Hub Houston. If you can't afford it right now, well, we do have 4 student scholarships available, but you can also join our free Hue Impact app at hueimpact.com. And I know that I'm at the top of my time, but you can access these slides at bit.ly/youarethechange-HCC. And then I'll make sure that Ravi and Audrey have access to this and can share it with you so that you can click on those links and connect with those resources. And if you have any questions, I'm most easily reachable through Twitter at Grace Rodriguez or on Instagram at that Grace Rodriguez. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace, for giving us insight on what you do as a social entrepreneur. I truly appreciate it. It's very detailed. Speaking of insight, I would like to introduce Kerwin Richards from Social Insytes. Kerwin Richards is a technologist and music enthusiast with a passion for building and strengthening the communities by helping business and individuals that provide direct service to the underserved members of the community. Welcome, Kerwin. Take it away.
All right. Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is a great platform. Grace was amazing. That was some incredible information. I'm absolutely going to be visiting that site and looking through that deck. And I just want to, talk to you a little bit about myself, my journey, a little bit about me and Social Insytes. And so Social Insytes kind of is this experience that is a reflection of my journey. We provide music therapy and data analytics, and we help nonprofit organizations understand a little bit more about kind of their secret sauce behind how they impact the community. And so we do that through data analytics, but then also through music therapy, where we allow young people, and we're going to go a little bit into this a little bit later, but where we allow young people an opportunity to express themselves and find a safe space to kind of connect musically, but then also to help them to redefine some of the traumas that they've experienced through life. And that creates an opportunity for healing on many levels. And we try to focus on young people who are facing challenges, whether it's homelessness or mental health challenges, just different diagnoses. And so it's a fun journey. It's a fun opportunity. I enjoy getting to wake up and do that every day and make an impact there. But I want to take you through a little bit through my journey so you understand how I got here. And hopefully, you know, this can inspire you to realize that you can do the same thing. It's right within your grasp and within your reach. And so I was born in Brooklyn, New York. So in New York as well, just like Grace mentioned. So I was born in New York. You know, my parents are from Trinidad. So they moved here. Okay, nice, Queens. My parents are from Trinidad. They moved here with $17, right, and a dream. They also had the discipline and determination to make that dream happen, and so that was really, you know, critical for me to see at a young age. My mom went from cleaning houses and babysitting in New York to becoming a computer programmer for the state of New York. So that was her part of her journey. My dad, you know, he and his siblings, my my dad was a DJ. My dad's brothers, my dad's sisters and brothers, all DJs. And my dad was probably the first Uber driver before Uber was Uber. He took everyone around town. He was a taxi cab driver. So, and it wasn't a taxi cab; is his dad's car, right? So it was, you know, that's what my dad did. He did that for a long time, and when finally moving to New York, he became a bank manager in Manhattan, right? So that was kind of the journey for him. Both of my parents always worked professionally as well as had a side hustle, and so the magic for me happened at the age of 5. So it was Christmas. I'm going to paint the picture, you know, but it was Christmas. I was 5 years old, and I got 2 toys. I probably got some other ones, but these are the ones I remember. One was a turntable, right? So this turntable was red, white, and blue. It was my second one because I broke the first one. We won't talk about that. But this turntable was red, white, and blue. And it was like the world opened up when I put that needle on the record and just heard the sounds, right? So like I was mesmerized. You know, you get that one toy and you sit there forever, right? And that's where I'm stuck for Christmas, right? So that was the first gift. The second gift that I got, after they pulled me away from the turntable, the second gift that I got was a big bird, right? And so, you know, don't laugh, don't laugh too bad, but it was a big bird. I was 5, right? This big bird was the big yellow bird. It was actually a radio. So if you turned it upside down, it was the bird in the nest. And so if you turned it upside down, there was an on-off switch and a music dial where you could change the station. And like any, you know, 5-year-old boy, I was trying to play with it too aggressively. And so I broke it within 5 minutes of owning the big bird. When I broke it open, that's where the magic was. It's like I broke it open and all I saw on the inside were wires, just wires everywhere. And that's when I fell in love with technology. I had no idea what I was looking at, but I knew whatever that was, I wanted to be able to make things like that, right? So the combination between Big Bird, we're not going to say Big Bird, technology, music around Christmas. And, you know, so that was a passion that became a passion for me. And then many expressions of that in my young life coming up. And, you know, I used to take trips with my dad, and my dad would drive around town, and my dad would look around. He'd say, look around, right? Look at all these stores, all these businesses. And each one of these people had a dream. Each one of them had a dream, and they made it happen. And we walked into their store and we purchased a product. And that product is a result of their heart, right? They spent years, who knows what their story is, but they spent years building that. And here we are today paying them for that service. And if you look at this block and the block next to you and the block ahead and the block behind, it's filled with stories of people who had a passion and a dream and fulfilled it. And then there are countless other stories of people who had that same passion, but didn't fulfill it, who are not on this block. And he said, you know, look, if they have this dream and if they can fight and if they can push and if they can make it happen, then so can you. Right. And that was huge for me. That was huge coming from my dad. It felt like everything my dad said was like some aha moment. Right. But it was huge for me to hear that. And so I continued on. We moved to Atlanta, which is where I am now. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia, which I hated, by the way. I hated moving from New York to Atlanta, but that's besides the point. And at the age of 15, I got a job at Six Flags, an amusement park, and then I also started a barbershop. Started the barbershop in the garage. It was $5 for a haircut or a basketball if you couldn't pay, right? My brother and I, we had plenty basketballs to play with because lots of people couldn't pay. But if you needed a basketball, we could sell you one for $5. So we would always get that money back. And that was kind of the first real business that I started. And I learned a lot through that experience. And then that started what was a journey for me of having a corporate job, which was Six Flags, right? Having this official job, and then also having my own business, which was this barbershop. And that took me through college years at Morehouse, and it took me through grad school in Detroit. And then it took me through, I moved to LA, and I was in LA for some years. And what happened was a transition from the barbershop to music, producing, writing, and for lots of different artists, and then also for myself. Worked on with Warner Brothers for some time, and that was an amazing experience. I actually got to the place where I was fortunate enough to win a Grammy at one point. So it's like I had reached a place in my career musically where it was like, this is it, but I still wanted more. And then from a professional standpoint, I journeyed through, working different jobs, and eventually moved into, worked in the government sector for some time, doing data analytics and fraud investigations and things like that. And what ended up happening was I was able to get a position in a nonprofit organization as a CTO. And that's when the light bulb came on for me. Being able to work within our community, and part of what we didn't hear was the time that I spent working with youth. That's throughout my life, people who look just like me and went through the same experiences I had, and trying to help them see the world differently. And so here I was at this nonprofit organization, seemingly at the peak of my career, and still not completely fulfilled, but realizing that an opportunity to be able to help people using both music and technology, and finding a way to allow people to open up, right, and connect with the dreams that they had. And what I learned through that experience was one of the biggest challenges is that people face, young people, all people, right, is when times get really rough, we stop dreaming. Right, we stopped dreaming, and it was really looking at opportunities to connect people back to that dream. And so that's how Social Insytes got started. And so it was a great opportunity to start a business where I could now work with a nonprofit organization. And so this is kind of what we do. So we create opportunities for young people to do creative writing. And through that writing, we do some recording. And that recording serves in many ways. One, it's, when those tough times come, they actually have something that they can listen back to about their own story and how they communicated that story in a recorded fashion. It also provides an opportunity for them to take that music, assuming it's good enough, and get some publishing and placement, right, to generate some revenue for them. But more importantly, it becomes a place where they can express their experience, express their journey, express some of those traumas. And inside of the right environment where there's a therapist there who can help them process through that, it becomes a healing opportunity. And so that's where I spend the bulk of my time. And so most of my team, we have engineers who are able to sit through the session and professionally help them produce, product. We also have data analysts who help us to look at the finer data points and help the nonprofit organization become even more efficient at what they do. So that's a combination of what I get to do, every day with Social Insytes, and it's a great opportunity. It's fun. I actually have other business ventures as well, and so one of the things that Grace mentioned that I think is so critical, right? It's as an entrepreneur, you see the challenge, right? You see the challenge, and what makes you successful is actually tackling that and not being afraid to fail. So if there's anything that I would leave you with, it's understand where your passions lie, embrace them, and don't be afraid to fail. I mean, this is the one moment where you can actually take all of the things in your life, your stories, the ups, the downs, and all those things, the places where you would work countless hours for free. You can take all of those moments and package them into something that's inspiring for you that you can turn around and help somebody else with. And that's what social entrepreneurship really gives you an opportunity to do. And at the same time, you get to make some money, and you get to live affordably and do things that you want to do. But really, it's that balance between helping people and helping yourself and helping your family in the future and that kind of thing. But that's what this social entrepreneurship opportunity is. And so I'm happy to be able to be here, share a little bit of my story with you, and then also kind of give you a little bit of insight into Social Insytes and what we do. And I hope that it's been a motivation to you. And, both you and I are going to be going back to Grace's slides to get all of those links so we can get some. And I'm fighting with you. Thank you.
I just want to thank you, Kerwin, for providing us with great information about being an entrepreneur, as well as I want to thank you, Grace, and Kerwin as a whole for just coming and joining us to inspire young as well as other, young and older entrepreneurs, and also giving back into y'all communities the way that y'all are doing. That is beautiful. How you in Impact Hub and having scholarship opportunities, Grace, with that for helping people to venturely open a business that can create a change in our communities as well as in our environments or whatever they choose to do. That is big, and I really appreciate that. And for you, Karen, giving back to our communities and the youth and giving them a voice when they feel as if they don't have a voice. I truly appreciate that. And now I'm going to open the floor for questions. So I'm going to go mute and you guys can go ahead and ask questions.
Hi, Kerwin. My name is Kanisha. Pleasure hearing from you. I want to ask you, what keeps you going as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. Hi, nice to meet you. And so what keeps me going as an entrepreneur, that's a tough one. Ultimately, it's that yearn to see the next person. Here's the thing that does it for me. When you see that light bulb come on for someone else, right? Because I know when that happened for me, and it happened multiple times in life because I needed that light to be turned on because I kept turning it off. But when you see that happen for someone else, that's motivation that keeps me going, right? So watching the impact that anything that I've been able to do, the impact that it has on another person and how that affects them and making them smile and making their day just a little bit brighter. I think that's ultimately what makes me, wake up every day and smile and, tackle the next adventures.
Hi, this is Luisa. Or can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Why did you choose social entrepreneur career?
I think I didn't choose it. It was emergent. So a lot of the things that I do that I'm really passionate about is helping people, and that's essentially social entrepreneurship. I find that as we're trying to actually reach more people like yourself and help them launch and grow their ventures, people don't understand, or this term social entrepreneurship isn't very common. So for people to identify as a social entrepreneur, it's really hard to do. Because like myself, I'm 47 now, and I had never heard of it before the past couple of years. So I think there are people who are doing good, and what I'm trying to find is who are the people who are doing good, and how can we help them, and then help them understand if you need resources. If you're looking for impact for investors, look up impact investor. If you're trying to find out what they're looking for, call yourself a social entrepreneur. And it's interesting. It's the same thing in the tech startup space, where people who who were positioning themselves as social entrepreneurs or impact ventures. When they said that, the traditional investors weren't interested in investing in them for some reason, because they were like, you should just be a nonprofit. But they're creating solutions for healthcare. They're creating biotechnologies. So they're creating impact, but also very good investments. So I think whatever you decide to call yourself, just it's kind of like what's the synonym that you need to use to get to where you want to go. And if that's a social entrepreneur, or now people in Europe are calling it impact innovation versus just social, because energy people don't see themselves as social. So whatever you need to call yourself to get forward, do that. And then if when you're identifying, if you want to help educate more people about what social entrepreneurship is, then call yourself a social entrepreneur and tell people what that is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys, Kanisha and Louisa, for them questions. Kerwin, I have a question coming from the YouTube chat because we are streaming live. It says, is it worth it being an entrepreneur? And do you make money?
Important question, right? Important question. So, I mean, I think it's absolutely worth it, right? So there's the personal joy. At some point when you go to work every day, and nothing's wrong with a traditional corporate job. There's nothing wrong with it. For me, what ended up happening was that once I got a taste of doing work that fulfilled me internally, I didn't want anything. So that's what social entrepreneurship is for me. Like, it's an opportunity to do something professionally for money, right? But then I'm also doing good. And there's a win all the way around there. There's wins everywhere, right? We all are winning. And so, yes, it's absolutely beneficial. I wouldn't change it for the world. And yes, I do make money. I do full time. And so if I wasn't making money, I'd have to do something else. And I would probably do something on the side, like, but yes, absolutely make money, and is an absolute business. This is not, people think of a nonprofit and they think charity work, right? And you think, I'm not going to make any money. I'm going to be forever, right? That's the financial reality we all kind of settle into. But that's not the case, not even as a nonprofit. Generate revenue as a nonprofit, but especially as a social entrepreneur, you're combining the best of both worlds, really. You are actually creating products, putting them in the marketplace just like any other corporation would do, and at the same and generating revenue from those products. But at the same time, those products have impact on the lives of many people, and so you're also earning revenue socially as well. So there's both social currency and general currency. So yeah, very fulfilling and lucrative.
Thank you for that answer. So, Grace, I have a question on Facebook group. It why is it called a nonprofit organization?
Why is Impact Hub a nonprofit organization?
I'm assuming so. That's what they mean.
Okay. Why we decided to opt for a nonprofit versus a social venture, or a B corporation, is we looked at the funding model, right? So if we want to provide services for people, where are we going to find funding from? If we wanted to deliver these services at a very low cost or heavily subsidized cost for people, getting donations to be able to, for us to provide those services was going to be essential. And in order to get donations at the scale that we needed, like 5-figure, 6-figure donations, it made more sense for us to be a nonprofit. There are for-profits. So as I was mentioning, each Impact Hub is independently founded. The Impact Hub in Austin is actually a for-profit. They started with a co-working space model first, and so they were able to generate revenue from co-working and then be able to provide programs for social entrepreneurs. We started programs first versus having space first, and that's why we just went nonprofit first. But both models work. It's just really, again, like what is the best way for you to make money? And if it's as a nonprofit, then go for that. And if it's as a for-profit, then go for that. What I do recommend, though, is start as a for-profit, because it's easier to not have to answer to a board, to be able to make your own calls, try your own experiments. And it's really easy, right? Just file for an LLC. I don't know how much it is now, but when I first filed, it was $250 with the Texas Secretary of State, and that protects you because even when you just get a DBA or doing business as, it's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. But if somebody decides to sue you or if something goes wrong, and you don't want to be liable for that because people can come for your personal accounts, your assets, whatever you own to help pay off that debt. So make sure that you get an LLC and then decide whether you have people that are willing to pay for whatever you're offering directly, or if you need to go to a larger foundation or find grants or find corporate sponsors to then fund what you want to do, and that'll help you determine which kind of model to adopt.
And if I could just add one little thing, that what Grace said is spectacular. And so like one additional thing would be, as you transition, I love the idea of starting as a for-profit. And if you find that you need to transition to a nonprofit, you may be able to take advantage of a fiscal agent, right? So, instead of making that full transition to a nonprofit, work with a fiscal agent, and what that allows you to do is to be a for-profit organization, but still work with a nonprofit organization until you realize what's involved. And, then you can decide, I want to spend all my time talking to a board and reporting to them and all those good things, and you can get the 501c3 on your own. So, yep.
Kerwin, I feel like you're teeing me up for that because we launched a fiscal sponsorship program this year so that a lot of people who are wanting to provide, like the makers who wanted to create PPE but needed nonprofit donations, we were able to channel donations into, helping those businesses stay alive. We also started the Life Fund, so we were collecting donations to pay local restaurants and hospitality businesses to feed healthcare workers or essential workers who are at the front lines. So, there's a way of still getting paid as a for-profit to do nonprofit work, as Kerwin was saying, through fiscal sponsorship. And I think if you just Google that, you can find organizations close to you that will offer that, or come to us.
Kerwin, I have a question from my Facebook group. They say, I love music too. And I can really, they are really good with making beats. What can I do to make money?
Yep. So that's definitely a longer conversation. But there are lots of opportunities because just like you as a person who's a creative, who likes making beats, there are people who need those beats, right? They need those beats. And there are a lot of platforms that would allow you to put your beats online, and actually people will lease them from you for $5, $10, $15, $20, $50 per song or things like that. Or other people who will buy them exclusively from you for $100, $115, $1,500, $2,500, in terms of exclusive purchases. So there are platforms online, that would allow you to actually monetize those beats that you have. And so that's definitely one way. There are lots of other ways. I would say, you can look at music supervisors as one other way. So music supervisors are the people who are responsible for placing songs in TV commercials, video games, movies, things like that. I've actually had several songs placed through that same process, and it's extremely, extremely helpful. And so that's another way, right? So one of the cheat codes to that, watch the movie. At the end, when everything's scrolling, it says music supervisor, jot that name down. Jot that name down. You go hit them up on Facebook, hit them up on IG, because social media has made everything very, very connectable, right? So, that's the cheat code, right? Your favorite movie, watch it, but do some work at the end and grab some information so you can turn that into revenue. Absolutely.
And how can we
also find influencers
on social media?
I'm sorry, Louisa, can you repeat that question? They didn't hear you.
Yeah, just how can we find you both in social media?
Your social media handles.
Yep. So for me, it's Get K Rich. So GETKRICH. Right. So that's my social media handle. That's the same on IG. It's the same everywhere. And just come find me there, and we can chat and make some things happen.
Awesome. And I'm Grace Rodriguez on Twitter and LinkedIn, and that Grace Rodriguez on Instagram and Facebook. But I did want to add on to what Kerwin was saying. You can also look for influencers. So look at people who are creating content and then offer the beats, offer them your beats to, as long as they give you credit or maybe even give you a portion of revenue, because a lot of times they're more open to getting new kinds of new beats, new music versus some of the traditional supervisors, especially if you're starting out.
Okay, we have a few before we start wrapping up and just open the floor to networking. We have 10 minutes. Go ahead, Kanisha, with your question from Facebook.
Yeah, so this question is from Facebook for Grace. We have a young person that wanted to learn how to code and become a programmer. However, this girl was a bit discouraged because she was the only person in her first intro to computer class. Her first question is, well, my first question on behalf of her is, what can she do to accomplish that goal? And the second part is, why do you think that's the case, that even in 2020, she would still be the only girl in her intro to computer class?
Man, it's a complex problem. So there's cultivation or a lack of cultivation of STEM, an appreciation for STEM in young and women and young and girls especially. There's just so much socialization still where girls have to be like this and boys have to be like this. And I'm still finding young women who are saying that I'm not good at math, when they can be really good at math. Whatever you say you are good at, you will become good at. Whatever you say you're not good at, you will become worse at. Right. So there's this aspect to it, because if you believe in yourself, it's one of those weird secret kind of Oprah things where if you just continue to say it and believe it, then you will actually become it, because you'll start leading yourself toward it. Just like, somebody asked, Louisa asked me earlier, how did I become a social entrepreneur? It was because I just wanted to continue doing good and making money while doing it. And that's what led me to that kind of thing. For women or for girls who want to to find more women who can mentor them, sponsor them, and provide them with more opportunities, there is the Anita Borg organization. It's one of the world's largest organizations for women in technology. So I would say that's the first place to connect. They hold an annual conference and they specifically provide a slew of tickets for students for free. So that's a great way to connect. There are chapters all over the world. I believe there's still a chapter in Houston too, where you can connect with more women who are in the coding space. There is a Girls Who Code group, a meetup group in Houston. So if you go to meetup.com and you look up Girls Who Code, I think that's still what it is. That'd be another resource. I know HCC sponsors Black Girls Code, who helps more young women or like more girls also get into that space. But it's kind of, you have to build your own ecosystem, and that's one of the things one of the reasons why I got involved in Station and then in Impact Hub, because I wanted to build the community that I wanted to see. So if you are passionate about supporting or like finding a community of girls and women who are going to support you and support each other in coding, if you would like to help with Women in Tech or be a part of the Women in Tech Houston group, I would love that. I would love to connect you with all of the investors and serial entrepreneurs and women who are in that space, who can also help you connect with more people, because the only way that we can have it exist is for us to create it ourselves. And that's actually one of the questions I wanted to give to Kerwin. I know you have another question for me, I think maybe. But Kerwin, I also wanted to hear if you have some practical advice on how do you build a community when you're a person, when you're a Black man specifically, or a Black woman who might be the ultimate minority in any of these kind of startup spaces. How do you find support?
That's a great question. It's a difficult thing. The first thing that I would do is, and I have done, is look within my own community, right? So a lot of times we actually overlook the people right around us that are extremely talented, because we have these expectations that say that where you are is not good enough. And that those people that are around you are not good enough. And so we need to look, outside of our communities, outside people that don't look like us, to kind of achieve certain things. But one of the things that's been really helpful for me was looking right within my community. Like some of my friends, one of the businesses that I have right now, most of the leadership team are actually friends and family, right? And now we're really tough on friends and family. It's not because you're a friend or family means that, you're going to be, but be able to do it and be successful. Keep the bar high, but look within your circle. I mean, there are people who you've trusted over the years who are actually extremely talented and can support you because they know you, and they understand how you operate. And so there's a pro and a con there, because if you're not truly honest with yourself about whether you're doing or you are just trying to get over, then you'll end up in a pitfall, right, where you surround yourself with yes men or yes women, that type of scenario. But really, I think within your own communities is the place to start. That's what it's been for me, right? I've looked within my own community, and I'm really incredibly honest with myself and with the other people in my community of, are we doing the right thing the right way? And are we making progress and moving forward? And if so, let's band together and do this thing. And you find, much as what you said earlier, you find that as you continue to make that progress, that those other resources find you. That's what ends up happening, is that as you begin to make that progress and move forward, you find that those things become, it's like the energy you put out is what you get back, But yeah, I say start within your own community, of those around you. Surprised to see what can happen just there alone.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for coming, and also especially to the speakers, Grace and Kerwin, for coming and allowing yourself to be open to questions and to explain to us about the things that you do and giving us encouragement to keep going as an entrepreneur. I truly appreciate it. I also want to thank Ms. Regina for coming in. She's our coordinator for student life. I truly appreciate it. And we have 3 more minutes. So I just, Kerwin and Grace hold on, I'm sorry. I got one more question. It says, so we have 3 minutes. So everybody can go into the chat, get the websites and all the social media that's linked. And I have another question. What are some jobs that one can go into a marketing major? And then after that, we'll wrap everything else up. That's to Grace or Kerwin, whichever one would like to answer.
So what are some jobs, make sure you understand the question. What are some jobs that if you're a marketing major that you can go into? That's the question, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Question.
I'm going to be biased because I'm looking at music therapy, right? But so from that, that you'll find is really prevalent today. Like, and as I look at music therapy, it's really just a broader comment, right? But because of 2020 and the things that have happened this year alone, people are having to be independent business individuals, right? We're having to be a part of what's called the gig economy. And you by yourself is like, you're your own business by yourself, right? There are a lot of people who are working from home and things like that. What that has provided is a huge opportunity for people to have to brand themselves. And branding yourself is very different today than it was 10 years ago, because social media is kind of like one of the biggest places where you brand yourself. As a marketing person, if you can capture brand themselves in 2020, in this century, with some of the modern technologies, offering that as a service is actually huge. And there's a huge need for that, because we've all been thrust into this world where we have to work from home and be independent and kind of, find a way in this huge ocean of people to stand out. And that's really tough. That's really, really tough to do. And everyone, while individuals may be passionate about what they're doing, they may not be as passionate about how to get themselves out there or connected to the people who need it. And that's where marketing people are so helpful. So helpful is connecting people, helping to identify their brand, and then connecting them with who their customers really, really are. And I think that's a huge space in terms of from a marketing perspective. I hope that was helpful. I don't know.
Yes, actually is, and I just want to thank you for that answer, because actually I'm looking or marketing team myself. So marketing is a big deal when it comes to branding yourself as well as branding your company. So that is very true. I do agree with that. So definitely look into type of ways that you can build up your marketing company now as you're going into school and you taking notes and tips and things that you can use to build your own consulting company. So I want to thank everyone again. Our time is up. It was a pleasure. I'm so glad that y'all was able to make it and I enjoyed it. And before we get ready to leave, I want to let you know for all the students that is on here that's HCC students, you can definitely come and join our innovation club at accs.present.io and just search for innovation club and you can click the join button and you'll be able to be a part of us as well as the events. And I want to thank my two officers as well, Kanisha and Louisa, and thank Mr. Ravi, our head lead of the club as well as the entrepreneur department. Thank y'all. Have a good night.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.